Good to go.
All right, my name's Tom Martz. I'm the chair of our Solid Waste Steering Committee. I'd like to call the meeting to order, please. Welcome, everyone. Do we have any disclosure of pecuniary interest? I'm not hearing any, so we'll assume none. Geoff, are you ready to take us through this, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the steering committee. We're here today to propose a new solid waste program to the steering committee. This program would do away with the current garbage bag tag program and transition it to a cart-based system. That cart-based system would also be a user pay system. I've prepared a PowerPoint presentation that I'll run everyone through. And once it's complete, I'll turn it back to the chair and that'll give the opportunity for questions, concerns to be addressed. So can everyone see the PowerPoint presentation up on the screen now?
I'm getting a look like a comment from Dennis.
Oh,
Well,
go
I
ahead.
think the screen is split. If you can get it to one page so we can see it clearly.
Is it? Okay.
I agree. You're seeing two at once, Geoff.
Okay,
One
sorry.
would help.
Bear with me here. I've got three screens on the go here trying to. Okay. Okay, how is that?
That's much better.
I
Okay,
think you
great.
got it there.
Okay. Okay. Back in September, staff reported to council on our in-house solid waste collection program. An automated cart collection program was introduced to council during that meeting, and I was asked to report back with some more details on a program such as this. Staff is presenting this today as a decision needs to be made on our rear loading truck that was leased in 2019. The lease on this truck expires May 31st, 2021. And if Central Elgin wishes to go to an automated cart system, a decision needs to be made by the end of 2020, roughly, so that that truck can be returned and we can reorder, order a proper truck for what direction we're headed in. The budget is also scheduled to be tabled in front of council on November 30th. And the decision on which program we go with as far as solid waste needs to be accounted for in the budget. Our current solid waste program. In 2011, council endorsed the Waste Management Master Plan Waste Recycling Strategy final report. That plan suggested that the number of tags or bag tags be reduced 5% each year, until which time each residential property was down to 52 bags or 1 bag per week. With the current system, extra tags can be purchased by ratepayers for $1.50 per tag. Our collection program currently includes pickup of solid waste and blue boxes. In 2023, it is expected that the Blue Box program will become the financial responsibility of the producers and could be contracted out by the producers. That may well leave the municipality only responsible for garbage collection. Our collection program now includes 5 full-time unionized staff, 2 side loading trucks that were purchased in 2019, a rear loader that has been leased that we mentioned earlier. And like I said, that the lease on that rear loader expires in May of 2021. In 2020, Central Elgin distributed 61 residential, 140 commercial, and 29 farm bag tags. In 2021, those numbers were increased to 64, 147, and 30 respectively due to concerns that COVID-19 restrictions were creating more household waste. Okay, so I have just a short video here that shows the committee what kind of program or how it works with the trucks and the carts. We'll run this video for everyone's information here, and then I'll jump back in. Okay, so as you can see, it's quite an efficient way of collecting garbage. So with the automated cart collection, staff have looked at moving to an automated cart system for garbage collection only at this point. It is not recommended that any changes to the Blue Box program be made at this point, as the transition to full producer responsibility is set to take place between 2023 and 2025. And from a report that the province put out a few weeks back, it looks like our area may be one of the first areas to transition to that new program. It is recommended that if the automated cart program is implemented, it be changed to a user pay system rather than continue to be funded through general taxes as the program is, or as the solid waste program is funded now. A user pay system would provide options to residents on the size of cart they desired, and the cost to the user would reflect the size of the cart. The user pay program may be added to the resident's tax bill as a means to collect that user pay. If the steering committee and council wish to move forward on a cart system, it is recommended by staff that the program be implemented for June 1st of 2021. And that would coincide with the lease of the new truck. All of the 2021 garbage bag tags at that point, June 1st, 2021 would become void, and we would be onto the cart system. So some of the advantages of the automated cart collection system are lower labor costs. You can see that's a one-man operation with the side loading truck with the automatic arm. There's less time and money lost to injuries. We've seen that over the past year where we have lost time to injuries. It's safer for the waste collectors. Wheeled trash carts are much easier to move for some. Neighborhoods are more attractive. In many cases, the need for plastic trash bags is eliminated. Trash is less accessible to animals. No longer the need to distribute all the bag tags at depots that we typically do in the fall, and as well at the office. Some of the disadvantages of an automated cart collection system are higher equipment and maintenance costs. Difficulty to access carts in tight spaces. Port Stanley, for example, there are some, I would use Prospect Street as an example of this. There are some fairly tight roads that are hard to navigate for equipment like this. It may require some residents to place carts on one side of the road or the other, or pull the cart to a depot area where it's easily accessed by the truck. It's more difficult to collect material that is not placed in the carts. Some rural residents may have a fairly long distance from the house to roadside to transport the cart for pickup at the roadside. Okay, so I'll take the committee through the operating costs of the bag tag program compared to what we see the cost would be for a cart system. Now the operating costs take into account the administration costs as well as the cost for labor and equipment to pick up the solid waste curbside and get it to the landfill, but it does not include the tipping fees at the landfill for the tonnages that are dumped at the landfill. So Our total operating cost for the current bag tag system that we have in place now is $483,150. That equates to a cost per household based on 6,200 homes of $77.93. So I would turn the committee's attention to a couple numbers here. One being the operators or the labor costs involved in delivering the program. You can see we have a cost of $160,000 here. Another would be the printing services, and that is to have the bag tags printed. So that's a cost of $15,000. One more that I would bring to your attention is the equipment rental. The cost to lease the rear packer truck that we have in service now is $93,000 per year. Moving on to the operating costs of a cart program. As you can see, the total cost has gone down to $409,850 per year. And if we look up here, we can see the labor costs or the operator's cost is cut in half. From $160,000 to $80,000 because we only need a single person operating the truck. I have accounted in for some help from the recycling team to help for heavy days in Port Stanley, for instance. So there is some of that time accounted into that $80,000. The equipment rental number, it has jumped up to $105,000. The side loader is roughly $12,000 per year more to lease than the rear packer is. So that cost has increased. As well, you can see our printing costs have gone down to roughly about $1,000 because while we'll still potentially print garbage tags for overflow garbage, there won't be the need to deliver those out to everybody in the municipality. So the cost per household for the operating costs of the cart program have gone from, I believe it was $77 down to $66 per year. Okay, cart implementation costs. In order to get this program started, we obviously have to purchase the carts. So we've had a quote from a cart supplier in the GTA area, and we they quoted 3 different sizes of carts. So I've got the costs summarized here. The cost per cart for the 120 liter cart, which would be the default cart that would be offered to the residents unless they requested to upsize the cart. So that cost of the 120 liter cart would be $33. There's a delivery fee of $6. The supplier would actually deliver the cart once manufactured directly to the resident. So the total cost there is $39 for the cart. So when you total all this up, we get a total cost of $266,000. Now, with the different size carts here, I've estimated how many carts I think might go out to the different residents. So like I said, we would use the smallest cart as the default cart, which in this case is a 120 liter cart. I've assumed out of the 6,200 total residences that we pick up from, 5,200 would request the smallest cart. It's assumed that 800 residents would request the 240 liter cart. And it's been assumed that 200 residents would request the 360 liter cart. So that's what those numbers are based on, the estimated quantities for the number of carts. So moving on with cart implementation costs. In year 1, it is proposed that the initial annual user fee would include the total cost of the new cart. After replacement cost, a replacement cost would be built into the yearly fee per household to replace the carts after a 10-year period. The yearly cost would be the total cost for the cart plus delivery divided by 10. And we use 10 years because these carts come with a 10-year warranty. So after 10 years, we would expect that we would have to replace all these carts. So obviously the year one costs would be higher than the years after due to the initial investment in the carts. It is anticipated that in year one, an additional $35,000 of staff time for promotion and education of the program would be needed to get this start. This is a large program to roll out to the residents, and we need someone to be on top of the program here. So we've accounted for that. We would also draw on some of the experience other municipalities have had implementing a similar user pay program. Okay, and then here I've got a table where I've summarized the replacement costs or the replacement fee that users would be required to pay per year, and that's based on the total cost of the cart divided by 10 again. So if you had a 120 liter cart, your yearly replacement fee would be $4.07, $5.29 and $6.10 for a 360 liter cart. In order to compare costs between the bag tag system and the cart system, the operating costs must be added to the tipping fees from the landfill, which like I said, hadn't been included in the operating fees. So add the operating fees plus the cost from the landfill of an estimated cost of $240,000 per year, plus any additional costs on top of that. So for the bag tag system, we can see here that our operating cost, as I mentioned earlier, is $483,150. When you add the tipping fees on from Green Lane, the landfill, that's a cost of $240,000, bringing the total cost to our current program being $723,150. Moving on to the cart system, year one, like I said, is going to be more expensive because we have those implementation costs. So our operating cost is lower compared to the bag tag system at $409,850. We have the initial cost of the carts at $266,000. The replacement cost of the carts divided by 10, that equals $26,000. Again, adding tipping fees from Green Lane at $240,000, and then the additional staff costs, as I mentioned earlier, at $35,000. That brings the total cost of the program in year one to $978,140. So you can see that is a considerable increase over the bag tag system in year one, because we're purchasing the cart. So we went from $723,000 to $978,000 for year one. Moving beyond year one, I've summarized what our costs would be. So again, our operating costs would be $409,850. Our replacement costs for the replacement carts 10 years down the road is $26,000. Tipping fees of $240,000. And our total cost of the program beyond year one is $676,512. So moving back to going back to the bag tag system, we went from $723,000 and we've reduced our cost down to $676,000. So beyond year one, we're actually saving roughly $46,000 per year going to a cart system. And I would see no need for an increase beyond the year one. We're set up and ready to go. So here again is our yearly cost comparison. 723 jumps up to 978, and then beyond year one, now we're running at a lower cost than our current system at $676,512. So as I said, this would be a user pay program. So this is what we are proposing as of now for the user pay program, taking all those costs into consideration. We said that we would be proposing 3 different size of carts, and the price of those, the yearly fee of those carts would reflect the size of cart the user wishes to have. So The 120 liter cart, like I said, would be the default cart that we would roll out to everybody unless they requested a larger cart. So adding up all the costs here, you can see that for year one, we would have a cost to the user of $148.86 per year for solid waste. And that's for the 120 liter cart. If the user wished to go with a 240 liter cart, the cost per home goes to $201.29. And the 360 liter cart would go to $249.25. So what we've done here is the operating cost remains the same for each one of these different cart options. What we've done is we've adjusted the tipping fee per resident. So you can see if you have a 120 liter cart, your tipping fee for the year would be $39, as opposed to double that at $78 for a 240 liter cart, because a 240 liter cart takes roughly double of what the 120 liter cart is. And then the tipping fee for the 360 liter cart is add another $39 onto 78 and you get 117. So that's really where we're adjusting the prices, or the bulk of the price difference comes in is the tipping fees at the landfill. So that's what we end up with here for cost per home. So taking that rationale and going beyond year one, we get a cost per home of $103.17 for a 120 liter cart. 240 liter carts would cost $137.39, and the 360 liter cart would be $171.21. So comparing the different systems here, the bag tag system right now, the cost per user is $116.64. And again, going from 148 in year one for the 120 liter cart, and then beyond year one, the price goes down to $103.17 per household. Cart sizes. So like I said, we would roll out the smallest size cart to each user unless they requested a larger cart. So the 120 liter cart that I have shown here holds approximately 1.5 or 1.5 regular sized black garbage bags, or 3 to 4 of the smaller white kitchen bags. The 240 liter cart holds approximately 3 black bags, and 360 liter cart holds approximately 5 black bags. And the carts that were quoted carried a 10-year warranty. And if council wishes, staff can review pricing on a smaller 80 to 95 liter cart. If council wishes, rather than the default 120 liter, we can play with those sizes as council wishes. And the 80 liter cart, for instance, 80 to 95 liter cart, that holds approximately 1 regular size black garbage bag. And then down below here, I have some graphics showing the difference, the actual dimensions of the different size carts. So on the left here, we have the 120 liter cart, the 240 and the 360. So for council's information. Okay, moving forward, the steering committee can make a recommendation to council whether it wishes to proceed with the implementation of a cart-based system. And again, we have a few things dictating our timeline here, one being the lease of the rear packer, as well as the implications to budget. So like I said, that budget's going at the end of November, early December. And this program with it would carry some budget implications. So that's all I have for the presentation here. I will turn it back to the chair, and I'd be happy to take any questions that anyone has.
Thank you, Geoff. As Geoff said, he's opened the floor for questions.
Fiona,
Go ahead.
Jeff, I'm not sure, maybe I missed something. So for the new cart system, you had mentioned that, so for the resident to purchase that cart, it could go on their taxes. So for that initial cart, is each ratepayer paying upfront for that cart in the first year? Like when we first get it, that's going to automatically go on our taxes for us to recoup?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so the user would pay upfront in the first year for the cost of the cart.
Okay, so then essentially, wouldn't that 266 that we have in that first year's costs, it essentially within the first year would be gone, right? Because we would be getting that money back for the carts anyway. So would that not lower the overall costs? Like I get initially the outlay on our behalf is there, but in that first year, we're recouping that money back anyways.
That's correct. So the municipality would likely have to upfront that cost, but would
Okay.
recover that cost back in the same year.
In the same year. Okay.
That's right. So
All right. So it doesn't seem that bad to me then if,
so
Right.
all the fees and the costs of the program would be borne by the users, and there would be no additional costs put on the general taxes.
yeah, okay. All right. I just wanted to be clear on that then. Thank you.
Tom, it's Sally. I'd like to ask a question.
Go ahead.
Jeff, I like the whole thing, but I like the idea in one sense of a smaller cart being possibly available at a cheaper rate, because not everyone like myself, I only put garbage out every 2 months. And that wouldn't be any more than, a small garbage can every 2 months. So, and I know this is based on putting that cart out every week. Have we thought about whether we should put the carts out once every 2 weeks, or is there any way of, I'm just trying to think of ways to encourage people to produce less garbage. Like I certainly wouldn't need a cart the size of our smallest, the standard one that you're probably doing. But I mean, I'm probably going to have to pay for it, and I'm going to have to pay for weekly pickup, even though I wouldn't be using it. And so it's not encouraging people, to not produce waste. So that's my only concern. And I'm just wondering what your thoughts are there.
So to go right now, the way our program is set up, it would be difficult to go to a bi-weekly pickup because we have the staff in place to do a weekly pickup. Now, if sometime in the future, let's say when the recycling is taken over by the producers, that may be an opportune time for council to consider a green bin program, because we would be saving some of the costs that we're spending on the recycling collection, and we could turn that over possibly to a green bin program. So at that point, that may be an opportune time to go to consider a bi-weekly collection. The same truck could pick up the same operator and truck could pick up the green bin 1 week, and the next week it could be out picking up the garbage. But right now, we would have nothing for that operator to do between the garbage and pickup, or between the odd weeks that there is no pickup, unless we went to a bi-weekly recycling. So it's an option we could look at, going to bi-weekly recycling, doing recycling 1 week and garbage collection the next week, if the committee would like to look at that.
Jeff, it's Tom. I'm just wondering, how flexible would we be if people picked the one size cart, and then say one kid went to school and this all of a sudden the family was half the size? Can they swap that out to a smaller size or a bigger size depending?
Yeah, they wouldn't be held to the cart that they chose during the initial stages of the project, but there would be a fee to swap out the carts. If, for instance, you had a 240 liter cart and 6 months down the road, you decided that you didn't need that 240 liter cart, there may be a fee of, let's just say $30 to have a new cart delivered to you. And details like that would have to be taken into consideration as we move along here. So,
Jeff, another question, thinking for the rural people, like I'm 250 feet to the road and it's gravel, but I lug an old-fashioned Canadian Tire thing out there every week. With the bigger tires, I would think this would be a lot easier to lug out, wouldn't it?
I guess I would leave that up to the user, but I have a green bin at my home and it's quite easy. I don't have a 250 foot driveway, but it's quite easy for me to roll around my property as compared to lifting the garbage containers.
Well, the larger wheels should make it easier.
Yeah, I would think so.
Just one thought on that, Jeff, is that someone like myself, I live, quite a long way from the road, and I know there are farmers around here that live a lot further than I do. I don't wheel or carry my garbage to the road. I put it in the back of a pickup truck and drive it down. And the recycling once every 2 months. That's part of the reason, but I couldn't lift a cart into the back of the truck. So I'm not certain entirely how one is supposed to do it if one lives, far enough away that they're not going to wheel the thing to it.
Yeah, and I think what some residents in rural areas have done that have a cart system in place is they've built a little shed up near the road where they're storing their cart. So that's an option to the residents who don't want or are unable to wheel the cart back and forth from their home to the road.
Living in a village, it wouldn't be an option for me to build a box down at the road easily.
Mm-hmm.
Further questions? Dennis, go ahead.
On that current slide that you have on there, Jeff, the tipping fees dropped from 39 to 33 in subsequent years. What was the reasoning behind that?
So the reason behind that, what I was trying to do there was, so I have the yearly costs up on the sheet right now. So what I did is I changed those tipping fees so that we gathered enough revenue to cover our costs each of these years. So I played with these tipping fee numbers down here based on trying to generate enough revenue back to cover our total costs. So in year one, you can see we need a minimum revenue of 978,000. And then, so right now with the tipping fees that I've got shown here, we have 984,945. So I think where the change in the tipping fee actually comes from is, if you recall, I mentioned that there was a $35,000 requirement for staff time to implement that. So I think that may be where you're seeing a different number in the tipping fees. But these are the numbers that I've played with in order to generate enough revenue to cover the yearly costs.
Chair, Bill here.
Go ahead, Bill.
I'm just wondering, what would be the thoughts? I know we'd be financing it up front, but what would be the thought about just taking the average over the 10 years and just charge them the average instead of that high spike in year one, but rather than just go with the same flat fee all the way through?
So that's an option. That would mean that the municipality would be carrying that initial cost over a period of 10 years in order to recover that back. So that would have an impact to especially our 2021 budget, where if we put out the $266,000 to implement this program, we wouldn't see that money back until, or all of that money back until year 10. So that's the negative side of doing it that way, where if the users pay for it right up front, we're not carrying, or the municipality isn't carrying that initial cost.
Mr. Chair, I have a question, Colleen.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Two questions. One is simple, I think. We have been carrying around in our garage this gigantic garbage bin that we've never used. It has wheels. Would it qualify as a bin, or do they all actually have to be purchased brand new and of this kind?
They would all, I would propose as of right now that all the bins would have to be purchased through the municipality. Each bin will come with its own unique code that will be stamped into the cart so that we can keep track of the cart. So if there was a cart damaged, we would ask that it be replaced through the municipality rather than being bought at a home center, for instance. And the cost to buy through the municipality is likely to be much cheaper than it would be if you went to one of the home centers.
Okay. My second question was, the proposals are talking about year ones, but if this is all to start June 2021, obviously everything would be prorated for 6 months? Or is this truly a sort of June to June program? Does it need to be within the fiscal year?
That's an option that we would have to consider. We could certainly prorate the tipping fees, and go from beginning of January 1st to January 1st, call that a year. And then the first year would be prorated based on and really what we would do is play with the tipping fees there, as well as the replacement reserve fee. So it could be implemented where they pay the full cost of the cart and pay the rest of the tipping fees, operating fees, replacement reserve fees. That could all be prorated for 6 months. And then moving on from January 1st, there would be the opportunity to start that as year 2 and then move on with the new fees.
I guess I'm just trying to figure out which way is the best way, I guess, because as a homeowner or a user, do you want to sort of, is it easier to message, this is your one-time cost and it's going to be the same for the next 10 years? Or do you say it's one price for 6 months and then a different one for the remaining years?
Just a comment, Sally. I'm just, with this idea that Colleen's proposing, if we did it for the 6 months, they paid for the cart, they would certainly be paying far less in tipping fees for 6 months. So it would mean their initial bill wouldn't be as large, and they certainly wouldn't have been buying any garbage tags because they wouldn't have run out, considering we're giving them a whole year's, but only going to use it for 5 months. That might be an easier way to make it palatable for people, because then the second year from this, from January on, it's going to be what it would normally be each year.
I just don't know which is easier to tie it to, the sort of the purchase or lease of the new truck to accommodate this, and then, or is it a financial decision? And is only one truck with that arm needed to be leased or purchased come June?
So we currently have 2 side loading trucks that we use for recycling, and we would be leasing a third, and the lease truck would be the one that we would be operating this program with. So as to incur the wear and tear on the lease truck as opposed to the wear and tear on the trucks that we own.
So the intent is to continue to lease at least one of the 3 trucks that we use.
That's correct. And in doing that, that gets us to 2023 when we potentially give up recycling. So if in 2023 we're no longer in the recycling business, then we have 2 side loading trucks that we already own that can move over to this program. And then we no longer have a lease truck at that time, because we would be leasing it for a term of from 2021 or June of 2021. That new lease would expire in June of 2023.
Bill, here to the chair.
Yes, go ahead.
So on the 2 side loading trucks we have now, we'd be putting arms on them and converting them into a hydraulic side loading one for these bins.
So the trucks that we have now already have the arms equipped on them. So they are capable of doing that, but we need those 2 trucks. They're 2 stream trucks right now that we use for the recycling program. We would need a 3rd truck in order to complete both solid waste and recycling. So I'm suggesting that we lease another side loading truck for the purposes of garbage collection.
I understand. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, another question?
Certainly. Go ahead.
Just about the change in labor costs. If there are 5 individuals there now, are there 5 individuals in the future?
So no, there wouldn't be. So our solid waste team is comprised of 5 unionized employees now. If we make this change, I'm proposing we go from 5 to 3. Right now we have a lead hand that goes around and helps move garbage around to accessible areas, as well as enforces the bag tag. So if there's not a bag tag, they're called and they'll go write a note on for the user who has not placed a garbage tag on there. So I'm proposing we have 1 operator for the solid waste who would operate this truck, and then 2 recycling, 2 full-time unionized employees who work on the recycling trucks.
And so where do the other 2 go?
So that's there are options, and I haven't discussed this with anyone yet, but there is a potential to move those over to other departments. So for instance, in the roads department in the wintertime, we typically see a need for additional plow drivers. However, that department has enough employees to work to get things done in the summer. The water department, for instance, is the opposite of that. They have enough staff in the wintertime to get all their operations done, but they have a need for additional staff in the summer. So one option would be looking at moving 1 or 2 of these employees into a general labor position where they could be back up for sick time, vacation time on the solid waste crew, but they could also help fill in for some of the needs of other departments. For instance, during winter control season with the roads, and in the summertime when we have service leaks and different things that need to be done in the water department.
Thank you.
Geoff, would I be correct? If we go with this, we're forward thinking, but even if we delayed it, sooner or later, we're probably be forced to do this, aren't we?
Well, I'm not sure that we're going to be forced to do it this way. We own the collection program, but I think this is the way of the future. If you look west of here in the Blue Water area, it's all being done this way. And if you look out in Western Canada, this has really taken over the collection program in Western Canada. So like I said, it's safer for the operators. We've run into numerous instances where There's been needles found in bags and different things like that. There's no need for the operators to touch the bags anymore. And we've seen it with our own employees where we have injuries. And those employees, while they're injured, need to be reassigned to other duty or light duties. So it should really help us in that way.
Mr. Chair, Bill here again.
Go ahead, Bill.
I'm just trying to get a grip on this. We've got 3 trucks. So we're proposing to use only 1 truck that side loads for garbage, and the other 2 are used primarily for recycle, which should be phasing out hopefully when the government makes the suppliers start doing their own. Is that correct?
That is correct. The recycling is heavier than the garbage. So for instance, what we'll see is people may put out three recycling bins as opposed to 1 garbage bag. So it does take longer per stop for recycling. That's why we see the need for that second truck in the recycling side. And like I said, for instance, if we have a heavy garbage day in Port Stanley, one of those recycling trucks is going to, well, both of the recycling trucks are also going to be equipped to be able to pick up these garbage carts. So if there's a need, one of those other trucks can help offset some of the heavy garbage days in Port Stanley, for instance. So we could have the one solid waste truck working all day in Port Stanley. One of the recycling trucks can help fill in or help out the garbage collection operator for 3 hours and then spend the other 5 hours doing recycling. So we really have 3 trucks with all the same capabilities, but in order to collect on the schedules that we have now, we do need 3 trucks.
Mr. Leach has a comment, I believe.
Yes, I did, and it's one comment you made earlier, Mr. Chair. The other efficiency with the CART program is, Geoff has talked about the, not having to touch the garbage, fewer injuries, that kind of thing. But there was a study done by the Provincial Continuous Improvement Fund that looked at CART systems. The other thing it found is that people tended not to put the cart out until it was full. So it might not be going out every week. So therefore the truck isn't necessarily stopping at every residence because people aren't necessarily putting a cart out if it's only half full. So there was some potential savings in time and wear and tear on the vehicle as well from the cart system.
Mr. Chair, could I speak?
Certainly.
Just a comment on Geoff, when you were talking about the one of the sidearm trucks that we own, helping offset, with some garbage if needed. Would that not cause contamination for the recycling materials if we use the same truck for garbage and then recycling?
Oh, that truck would have to be emptied. So yeah, you couldn't go and do the 2-stream recycling without emptying the truck and then coming back and helping out with the garbage. So you're right in that you can't go collecting both at the same time. You have to empty the truck before you move on to one program or the other.
Would you not have to clean the interior as well if you're doing garbage first? Or would you do recycling first and then go to garbage?
I'd have to look into it further, but I wouldn't see a need that you would have to clean it out.
Further questions for Geoff?
Mr. Chair, Colleen,
Go ahead.
just, I suspect that the price per cart is set by the supplier. And typically the larger packages that you buy, just like in the grocery store, the more economical they are. But the 360 liter cart is half the price on a per liter basis than the 120 liter cart. Maybe nothing that we can do about that, but if we're trying to get the garbage amount down, you would want, like you have in your spreadsheet, 80% or better to be in the 120 liter carts, but that's also the more expensive price per liter cart. Is there any flexibility there with the supplier? Or do those ratios make sense?
The costs that I've got shown on there for the carts, those were quoted from a supplier in the GTA area just for a budgetary purposes.
Mhm.
So those aren't actually the costs that we're necessarily going to pay. We would put this out for proposal in order to receive the best pricing based on the number of carts that we're ordering. So if we're to implement this program, that's where this additional staff person comes in, is to help us identify what numbers we're looking at for the different size carts. We'd really have the month of January to try and determine that before we went out to proposal in February. So it's going to take a lot of time in order to do that.
And is there any, sorry, Mr. Chair, another
Yeah,
question.
go ahead.
Is there any opportunity to get the public's input into what size they would want in advance rather than trying to guess if that was an option?
Yeah, so the way I would see the program working is everybody is going to be signed up for the smallest cart available. We'll put out a campaign publicizing this whole program, letters to residents, etc., letting them know if you wish to upsize your cart, there will be an additional fee and you need to notify the municipality before we go out for proposal. So when this proposal goes out, we have actual numbers that we're working with so that we're not guessing. And if we don't hear from people, they're going to have a 120 liter cart delivered to their property. So I would foresee it'd be too difficult to force everyone to respond to what size cart they want. So if you want a larger cart, you'll need to let the municipality know.
And I would think to the mayor's point, they could size up or size down. Potentially.
And like I said, I can go back and see if I can price out an 80 to 95 liter cart and use that as a default cart rather than the 120 liter cart, if that's the committee's wish. And then that, because really what the 120 liter cart gets the residents now would be a bag and a half of garbage. Well, that's more garbage than we're permitting with our current allotment of garbage bag
Right.
tag. However, if we go to a smaller cart, say the 80 liter cart, then we're actually reducing the, say, level of service compared to what we're doing with our garbage bag tag allotment now, because I believe for 2021, we're giving out 64 bag tags. And if we went to the 80 liter cart, that's kind of reducing that number down to 52.
Right. Thank you.
The chair again.
Go ahead, Bill. I can't hear the other one.
Okay, the only last question I was going to ask, I don't know if you will or have you explored if there are any transition grants available in these current times to try and alleviate some of the costs. I just wonder if there are some equipment or asset grants that would possibly be able to be used in this.
I'm not aware of anything, but we'll certainly have a look and see if anything's out there and keep our attention turned to see if there is anything that comes out that may be grant eligible for a program such as this.
There's another question.
Yeah, it's Sally, Tom.
Go ahead.
I liked when Colleen mentioned about the smaller cart. I realize it's only one garbage bag per week, but a lot of families, that's all they need. And those that need more certainly could go with one of the larger carts. I certainly would like to see the options. If it's possible, you said 50% of the people would use that, and then the others would use one of the, the 120 or the 240 or the 360, depending on what they felt their need was. If we publicize this well ahead of time, then people should be able to judge whether they put out 1 bag a week or less, or if they put out more than that or would need more than that. Because we are selling a lot of garbage bag tags. I know that. So there are people that are needing maybe, more than one a week, but there are still quite a few that don't, because I'm sure there are lots of people that haven't bought any new garbage bag tags or haven't even used all theirs. So I would like to see us at least look into that and bring that cost back to us if we're going to do this.
I agree with that.
So, Mr. Chair, are you looking for a motion, or I'm assuming there's no more questions, or what are the next steps?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Dennis.
I'd like to request, I'd like to see the smaller carts proposal added to this for the user pay system. And one thing that did really make me question this proposal is going from 6 employees down to 3. I don't know how realistic that is when there's still remote areas where we still have to service some remote areas in the Fort Stanley. I think we'd be running into some trouble trying to reduce the workforce 50%, and we're still picking up the same amount of recycling. That is not changing. This is only for garbage that we're talking here. And to lose 3 employees, I don't think that's something realistic, and I don't feel comfortable lowering that service that much at this point. I don't know where that 3 comes from. I don't agree with it at all.
Fiona?
Go ahead.
I agree. I would agree with that point with Dennis. I would be afraid to reduce. Even when we went into this program, as it turned out, we required more staff than I think we initially had anticipated. So I think it's better that we're over prepared going forward than under-prepared, and then we can check it down the road. But to start with, I think we need to keep those staff.
Geoff, do you want to comment?
Yeah, so we're reducing staff from, so here's how our program works now. We have 4 staff that work the trucks. So we have 2 on the rear packer, which collects garbage, and they alternate pitching garbage in the back and driving. So we have 2 there. And then we have 2 on the 2 different recycling trucks. So that's 4 operators. And plus we have a lead hand, which is going around policing the garbage bag tag system, the recycling contents, that sort of thing. So really I don't see the need to continue with the lead hand person. And so we're reducing staff from 5 to 3. And if we go with 4 staff, I'm not sure what the 4th person is going to do other than maybe ride around in the truck. So we've talked about it as operations. With the operations department, we can get away with 3, especially if we are looking at, like I said, introducing a general labor position in the union that can jump around to different departments and help out with some of those needs. They're going to be the first person that's called upon to hop on the solid waste truck or the recycling truck when there's a need for holidays, vacations, sick time, that sort of thing. So I
That
think
makes sense.
I think we are good to go with 3 operators, with the understanding that we would have some of these general laborers put into the union that could hop around to different departments and help out with some of those needs and offset some of the needs that may occur with the solid waste. I don't see the need to have 4 full-time operators working every day in the solid waste program.
Mr. Chair, Colleen?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so just to that point, the smaller streets that are currently managed by that lead hand to pull the garbage out in the back of the pickup truck or whatever to make it easier, you're saying that exercise won't have to happen anymore?
Yes, so I would suggest that some of these smaller streets where the garbage trucks can access, maybe for instance Prospect, that we create a depot spot where residents depot their garbage so that they are accessible, the carts are accessible from the trucks, rather than having the lead hand chasing carts around town.
Which will probably work, maybe except in the winter time, perhaps. And there's always growing pains with a new program, but there was a little bit of pushback, I guess, when there was experimentation to put the garbage bags on one side of the street or the other, and then to centralize them on someone's front lawn. So it's just to be very sensitive about those similar issues here with the carts.
Yeah, and it's not uncommon for these cart systems where municipalities require the residents to put these carts on one side of the street. You'll see that in other municipalities that are doing a similar system. And as far as the depot, that would be my preference. So we're not chasing the carts around, and there is a centralized depot location. It lessens our operation costs.
And the people can identify their carts somehow?
Yeah, they would likely write their name on the carts. But if council wish, like I said, the idea would be to have these general laborers working in another department. That's an option that we could continue to provide some of these services that we have in the past with those people.
Tom, it's Sally.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was curious about that too. When you look at the length Prospect Street is, and it's narrow all the way except right at the beginning, they're obviously going to have to bring their carts out to near where Cornell goes off. That's a fair haul for some of the people at the very south end of Prospect. And as Colleen said, in the winter, that could be a fair challenge to take your cart out that far. But anyway, I like the idea of the carts in many ways. I just know that there are going to be problems for some people. I don't anticipate the cost. Right now, they're paying for garbage pickup already. It's just hidden in their taxes. This would no longer be hidden.
We certainly will not please everyone. It'll be a vast improvement for some, not others. But I think I like the 120 liter. You know, if we're making people squeeze in for that 1 week, what happens at Christmas or times when that takes the flexibility out? Because I see lots of people up and down the road, they may put a bag out, but it may not be really full. So I don't think there'd be any difference. People are going to put their garbage out. I like the flexibility of having a little extra. And when they drag that thing out, it may only be 3/4 full every week, but they still have the flexibility if they need it for more. If we're pushing just that one size, the smaller size, I hate to see the extra be dumped along the ditch somewhere.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. When I asked the question a while back, I was not suggesting that the default cart become the very smallest cart. I was just wanting that to become an option so that people could size up or size down as their needs dictate. But the 1.5 liter cart, 120 liter cart, sorry, 1.5 garbage bags worth, making that the default makes the most sense to me. So I would suggest, if we're looking for something in this, that we get the additional cost for the smaller cart, keep the 120 liters at the default cart, provide the direction to release a new truck in June of 2021 that accommodates the arm, and then it just is a matter of deciding whether this is a first year 6-month program or a year 1 January or June to June program. Are there any other decision points?
If that's a motion, I would second it for sure.
Does that cover
And
what
what-
you're looking for, Jeff?
I think so. So I guess there's a couple options. The steering committee can make a recommendation to council to move forward with a cart system, and we can work out some of these details as we go along here. The other option is we can schedule another meeting here before budget to address some of these concerns that the committee has before a final decision is made.
Just, Tom, one comment, Sally.
Go ahead.
When they were talking about the green bins originally, I had several people from Mariners Bluff call and say, we have no room for a cart for a green bin. I'm wondering what some of these condo areas are going to do if we go to this cart system. Because they have to hide their bags. They're not allowed to leave carts out. They're not, they have quite strict rules, and they don't have any storage space for a cart. That was the complaints that I was getting about 2 years ago when we first started talking about green bins. So that's something to think about. The other thing is, I'm glad to have the option, at least, of the smaller cart. That would be helpful, I think, to a lot of people, but I just want to try and encourage people to not produce as much garbage. And I'm afraid giving them a 1.5 bag cart encourages them to produce more garbage or put more in the garbage. And we're not going to the green bins at this time. So I am a little concerned with that as the default.
Further comments? Are you proposed? Jeff, go ahead.
I guess the one thing I would respond to Mayor Martin's comment about some of the condo sites, that leads us into a bigger topic where right now we provide dumpsters for some of the condo buildings that aren't accessible with our solid waste equipment. And because we're going to a user pay system for the garbage collection, we would also be going to a user pay system for these condo sites that currently we're paying for the tipping fees and the dumpster fees for to collect their garbage. So that would be a separate topic outside of this cart discussion, but that's a possibility of how we could overcome some of the obstacles that residents at Mariners Bluff have, is providing them a dumpster if they're unable to have carts, and they
Thank
pay
you.
the actual cost for the dumpsters.
Are you looking for us to make a decision today, or are you looking to bring us recommendations to next council meeting?
So I believe the steering committee can make a recommendation to council on whether or not it wishes to move forward with the cart program. The other option is I can look into an 80 liter cart over the next week and hopefully get something back in time to meet again with the steering committee and rework some of these prices. But if that can all be done at a later date, if council wishes to move forward with this, we can move and tweak this program as we move along. So those are the two options.
Dennis here.
Go ahead, Dennis.
I think the user pay proposal, the year one proposal on the screen you have, that should be looked at as a 6-month proposal. If we are going to start this in June, adjusting the tipping fees accordingly and the reserve in those columns. If we're going to go 6 months on this first proposal, just so we get true numbers. And for the 80 liter carts, perhaps we could look at them at a reduced rate to try to reward recycling rather than keeping it stagnant across the board. I think we could offer the small bid to people if they wish to do so, if they want to try to have less garbage. So I don't know if that's possible to do or if that's something we should look into even. Comments?
I like the logic of that.
I can take a stab at reworking this user pay proposal to include a smaller cart with a reduced fee, as well as what, if we went for a 6-month year one, what those numbers would look like.
I
And
agree with
report back to
that.
the committee.
Further comments? What is council's steering committee's wish? Do we want to just send Geoff back, bring a report, or do we want to make some kind of a
I-
clear direction today?
Colleen already made a motion and Bill seconded it, that we move ahead with it with the idea that we get some more information before the final implementation. But I think we're basically in agreement that we're moving to carts, which is what Geoff needs to know today for sure, or before budget. So I'm willing to do that with the idea that he's going to bring us back some other information later, but that decision doesn't have to be made right now. The key decision is that we're going to move to carts, and I'm in favor of that. And that's basically Colleen and Colleen's motion.
Yes, I would just want to clarify that though, getting more actual prices per cart or the cost of each cart would be helpful too, because if there's risk that it's actually higher than what is shown here, that could have implications.
That makes sense. Bill, are you good with that?
Yes, I'm fine with that.
Are you clear, Geoff, with the wording of or the direction of the motion?
Yeah, so I guess my understanding is that we're moving towards a cart system, but there are some details here that we still need to iron out in order to implement the program. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
We have a motion moved in second. Are we ready to vote on it, to give a recommendation to council?
Yep.
I'm assuming that's a yes from everyone. How can we conduct this vote? I can only see certain ones. Geoff, do you want to call them out and do the vote?
Yeah, so how do you want me to do this, Mr. Chair? Sorry.
Or I was gonna say, I can call out the names too,
Please.
if you wish, Mr. Chair.
Oh, that'd be great, Don. Go ahead.
Okay. And I'm just gonna call them out as they're showing up on my participant list. Councillor Kravitz,
Yes.
Councillor Wynn, Councillor Wynn,
Yes. Can you hear me?
yes. we can.
Okay. Sorry.
Councillor Fair,
Yes.
Councillor Rowe,
Yes.
Mayor Martin,
Yes.
Councillor Cook,
Yes.
and Deputy Mayor Marks.
Yes. Okay, the motion carries. I'll open the floor to any further questions or comments, but I think we're pretty much finished, aren't we? We've set out what we wanted to do today.
Yeah, I don't think staff have any additional matters.
Nope.
Okay. Well, I think we've had a good discussion. Thank everyone for their participation, I guess, and I think we're at the point, if there's no further comments, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay. I don't think we need to vote on that. So call the meeting adjourned and everyone have a good afternoon. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks, Tom and Jeff.